Let's explore how authenticity can be ugly and still successful. Let's begin with the uncanny valley. A fellow more clever than myself, there's plenty of them, back in the 70s insisted that the mysteries of biology only make sense when seen through the lens of evolution. In the animal kingdom, often predators will disguise themselves as prey. Perhaps that's why in the ancient Greek Aesop fables, we learn the phrase of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Therefore, in the animal kingdom, pattern recognition is crucial to survival. This lets us know that in terms of neural anatomy, the mechanisms required for pattern recognition are primal and visceral. Our survival depends on it. So there are human predators as well. Good morning, James. There are human predators as well. And of course, I'm reminded of a wonderful dialogue from Shawshank Redemption, when I think it's Tim Robbins says, maybe I should just explain to them that and he's speaking of his rapists, maybe I should explain to them that I'm not gay, to which Morgan Freeman responds, well, you have to be human to be homosexual. And the inference is these rapists are not homosexual, they're just human predators. Huge difference. And so I'm reminded of another movie, Analyze This, a delightful comedy in which a gangster is counseling a psychiatrist saying, listen, Doc, and I'm paraphrasing here, listen, Doc, these guys maybe don't have a college degree, but they can smell fear. And the idea is that regardless of how smart we think we are, we can't fool all of the people all of the time. Humans have evolved pattern recognition skills. We have evolved the ability to recognize a lie, to recognize someone pretending to be something that they're not. Now let's add another layer of complication onto this. In our society, children are indoctrinated to mask. Just like the protagonist from Mission Impossible, we are programmed and conditioned to mask. It's not polite to feel that way. When someone does something, you have to emote this, otherwise you're a terrible person. Blah, blah, blah. For those of us who are neurodivergent, especially those of us who are autistic, we were brutalized as children for failing to mask properly. Our survival as children depended upon our ability to mask, to pantomime feelings that we weren't experiencing. As adults, people might not know if we're autistic or not, but they can viscerally perceive the subtle contradictions that infer that someone might not be authentic. I first crossed paths with the authenticity movement back in the early 2000s. I was attending my first tantric puja. And tantric puja, not in the Buddhist sense, but in the sexual hippie community sense. And I encountered my first con man who used authenticity as license to manipulate others. And I'm having a conversation with this guy, and this out of the blue, he goes into the typical authenticity malarkey. I'm not sensing you being authentic right now. Who asked you? Of course not being authentic. Authentic would be me dragging you to the traffic and throwing your head under the wheel of a bus. I choose not to do that. So how do we do that? How do we be authentic and honest while at the same time experiencing the full spectrum of human emotions? Knowing, so how do we do that without being cruel? And of course, as always, if you come to this channel, there's always a neuroscientific solution. So let's explore the neuroscience of kind and at least non-violent authenticity. So when we rely upon active concentration as well as active contemplation, our blood mass collects at the bottom of our limbic system in tissue described as the amygdala, which functions as the seat of both anxiety and aggression. However, when we replace active concentration with the passive mindfulness that comes from accessing our sympathetic nervous system ensconced within our thoracic spinal cord during our inhalation. And when we replace active contemplation by accessing the parasympathetic nervous system ensconced within both the lower lumbar region as well as the tippy top of our cervical region during each exhalation, then that blood mass shifts from our cranky and anxious amygdala to a hunk of meat, just a centimeter or two, just a few centimeters behind our forehead. A hunk of meat that the big kids describe as the anterior cingulate gyrus. A hunk of meat that functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy. So here's the cool thing. Due to the nature of our autonomic nervous system, we are already wired to access our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. We are already wired for mindfulness and meditation. And its fringe benefit of empathy. The more we consistently and correctly practice mindfulness and meditation, perhaps for at least 5 minutes every 12 hours or so, the more honest and authentic we're going to be with ourselves and others while also being kind. See, here's the extra added plus. It has been said that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived, and it is the fringe benefit of our practice of mindfulness and meditation. The more we practice, the more we meditate like a Jedi, the more we will find that our choices and our utterances and our deeds are flowing with the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity that is the fringe benefit of mindfulness and meditation. This is how we're able to be authentic and vulnerable and non-violent effortlessly. I don't know if you're a big old geek like myself, but I am a big old geek. And in the second RoboCop movie, they went from giving RoboCop 3 imperatives to dozens and dozens and dozens of imperatives, and he couldn't process the information. He couldn't function properly. When we make the mistake of trying to live, our prefrontal cortex is an excellent tool, but it's a terrible default mechanism. And when we try to live from our prefrontal cortex as if it was our default mechanism, bad things happen. However, when we live from our autonomic nervous system and allow our prefrontal cortex to act as a tool of the autonomic nervous system, then we can be authentic and vulnerable and kind and nonviolent and even humorous despite what the manipulative or the lazy-minded might say. I do look forward to meditating and then chanting with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you wouldn't have to. Of course, I also spent that time studying only every sect of Buddhism and Taoism and Hinduism, so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. This morning, let us play with the easy meditation practice text. It has been endorsed by Buddha Cat. He is at peace with the world. That's right, folks. We're on the path of learning how to sit like a cat. I don't care how extensive your thesaurus is, whether you call it Satipassaddhi, Dhyana, Protozen, Zen, Shan, Mahamudra, Mahasandhi, Ati Yoga, Dzogchen, or Trekcho. It's still just mindfulness and meditation. So let's get up to speed when it comes to mindfulness meditation in just 4 steps. Here's our first step, and I've inferred this during the opening lesson. Here's a bit of review. We're going to begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, whether we mean to or not, we are accessing the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord. No, it did not evolve to support either extreme of mind blanking or active concentration. Well, then what has it evolved to do? It has evolved to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Well, if it hasn't evolved to actively concentrate, then what do we do with our breath? We treat our breath the way our piano student treats their metronome. When we notice our body breathing in, we can start off by silently and mentally reciting the 12 syllables, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. When we notice our body exhaling, we can silently and mentally recite an additional 12 syllables, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. This is not superstition. This is not wishful thinking. This is a gentle way of harmonizing the 3-pound supercomputer between our ears with what's actually going on in the present moment. Now, what I'd like to do is break this up into sets of 16 rounds, a round being 1 inhalation followed by 1 exhalation. Now, I keep track of this. In the time it takes me to do 16 rounds, you might only be able to do 12 or 8 rounds. That's not an indictment. It's just because I'm talking fast and therefore breathing fast. But my method to keep track of 16 rounds is by using Bengali crease counting. During each inhalation, I advance the tip of my left thumb. So as I play with these exercises and keep track with my thumb and fingers, if you wish, you can do likewise. Let's meditate. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. We come to our second step on the path of getting up to speed, that you too might meditate like a Jedi. During our inhalation, we can silently and mentally recite the phrase sitting tall, thus reminding our body to generate a vertical traction between our tush and our head. I recommend resting your hands in your lap. I recommend we refrain from the elitist practice of striving for the full lotus position. Ask anybody who's ever practiced ballet, and they will tell you, your knees are just hinge joints. It is your hips that are ball joints. We should therefore turn out from our hips and not our knees. We do not force our shoulders into an unnatural position by adjusting our head and the openness or closeness of our scapula will involuntarily adjust our shoulders. During our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the 3-syllable verb relaxing. Doing so is not a contrivance. Why is that? Because every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, whether we mean to or not, whether we feel it or not, we're accessing our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord as well as the tippy top of the cervical region. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved for mental release as well as physical relaxation. Let's practice. Some people close their eyes tight, some people relax their eyes, some people open their eyes wide, some people hold their eyes at half-mast. Some gaze upon the earth, some gaze upon the sky, some gaze upon the horizon. I recommend not forcing it, and notice what your body seems to want to do in the moment. Our job is not to dominate our body, but to cooperate with it. We come to our third of 4 steps. During our inhalation, we're going to start silently and mentally reciting the 3-syllable phrase, notice this. Once again, this is not a contrivance. This is merely us cooperating with our sympathetic nervous system. And of course, the more we cooperate with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems in harmony with our inhalations and exhalations, the more our blood mass shifts from our fearful and aggressive amygdala to our empathetic anterior cingulate gyrus. That is why the Dzogchen Lamas of Tibet have insisted that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. Perhaps that is why the Buddha statue smiles. We come now to our fourth step. And we make the shift now from 3 syllables to 1 syllable. During our inhalation, let us kick back and simply watch the antics of minds, perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings, as silently and mentally we recite the demonstrative pronoun this. As we exhale, let us relax into mind's non-graspable nature, as silently and mentally we recite the 1-syllable verb is. My request to you is that you listen to your body. When your body's too damn tired to sit properly, go tend to its needs. Sometimes fatigue or pain is your body's cry for more water, or more sleep, or more fresh air, or more exercise. Sometimes it is your body's cry for more fruit or vegetables or grains or seeds or nuts or legumes or tubers, which sounds like a disease, but it's not. Sometimes our body needs recreation. Sometimes our body needs rest. The more we cooperate with our body, the longer and we'll be able to comfortably and pleasurably sit in meditation. That's been my experience, and I have a shit ton of disabilities. If I can learn to do this, you most likely can too. The key is to shift from our controlling tendencies to our laid-back tendencies. The path of peace and fulfillment is not paved by indulging our controlling tendencies. What if enlightenment was not mystical? It was just a metaphor for the mastery of the Eightfold Path. As children, we learn to master tying our shoes. As adults, we can learn to master the Eightfold Path. The Buddha said it could be done in as little as a week. Now that we have climbed to contemplative cruising altitude together as a team, let us meditate as profoundly as Qui-Gon Jinn on Naboo. So at this point, we have a good bead on the 7th and 8th folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, mindfulness and meditation. The first fold of the Buddha's path is known as right view, but that's cryptic. What it really means is simply having a healthy relationship with change. We don't need a philosopher's PhD to perceive change. We see change every year as one season shifts to another. We see change over every month as the moon waxes and wanes. We see change every day as the sun rises and sets. We feel change every moment as our chest swells and sinks with the passing of each breath. Ever-changing, one and all, there is nothing permanent to grasp. We during our inhalation, the seventh fold of our eightfold path, we can notice a change in sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. We notice a evanescent, ever-changing nature of our emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. These are not flaws, these are features. As Westerners who were not raised in an Iron Age culture, our greatest roadblock to the mastery of the Buddha's teachings is the endurance with which we can sustainably sit. I recommend a gentle approach. Each of us has a smartphone, and each smartphone has a timer. You can give yourself permission to sit for about 5 minutes every 12 hours. You can even attend these free live streams for 5 minutes at a pop to pass the 5 minutes if you wish. After a week of this, you can bump it up to 10 minutes every 12 hours. And then by the third week, you can bump it up to 15 minutes every 12 hours. Progressing, thusly, by the conclusion of your 15th week, you could be able to sit effortlessly for an opening lesson and a 60-minute practice. By taking your time and progressing gently and incrementally over 15 weeks, it is less disruptive to your body, to your schedule, to your employment, to your relationships, to your pets, to your children. There is a great big myth favored by the pseudo-intellectual reductionists that if we practice meditation, we should have no wishes whatsoever. A little fellow you might have heard of known as the Buddha would disagree with that. For the second fold of his eightfold path is right aspiration, which is a highfalutin way to say wishing love. Here's the cool thing, we don't have to force it. once again, like we return to the seventh, we return to mindfulness. You will notice yourself wishing good things for others spontaneously. You won't have to force it. It works best if you don't. You can't look at film of people starving and not want them to be fed. You can't look at film of people being murdered and not want them to be safe. Loving kindness is the essence of mental morality. The more we meditate like a Jedi, the kinder we will communicate. Kind communication is the third fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, the essence of verbal morality. The more we meditate like a Jedi, the more we will experience impulses to behave kindly. This, of course, is kind conduct, which is the fourth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, is the essence of behavior or morality of body. the more we meditate like a Jedi, the easier it'll be for us to practice kind commerce, the fifth fold of the Buddha's eightfold path, wherein we stop stomping and snorting like a Karen determined to get others fired, or like a Chan determined to drive others out of business. Instead, we will replace our competitiveness and our cruelty with cooperation and kindness. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Neither the Buddha nor Gaurab Dorje invented meditation. It's very, very old. And it's not unique to humans. Do not believe the malarkey. A common fear is that if I'm mellow and laid back, I will be a complete pacifist, a doormat, if you will. And the good news is that the sixth fold of the Buddha's eightfold path is the effortless effort, the centered spontaneity that flows from our regular practice of mindfulness and meditation. When our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from centered spontaneity, you will actually surprise yourself by what you choose and say and do. There is a huge difference between the scattered spontaneity we might experience after downing our third espresso in 30 minutes, and the centered spontaneity of having sat in mindfulness and meditation regularly. But do not take my word for it. Test it in the laboratory of your own body and mind. The Buddha, so congratulations, you've just been taught the Eightfold Path. Let's explore the 7 enlightenment factors. The first one is mindfulness. There are many poop heads telling you that you shouldn't feel certain things or think certain things. No. The price of enlightenment is mindfulness. Sometimes we notice the glorious, sometimes the grotesque, sometimes the interesting, sometimes the boring, sometimes the pleasurable, sometimes the painful, sometimes the physical, sometimes the mental, sometimes the external, sometimes the internal. The second enlightenment factor is often translated as investigation, but I prefer the term curiosity. It's basically saying, regardless of what ugliness I notice, in my emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, or imaginings, I choose not to be defensive. I choose not to hide from my own body and brain. The third enlightenment factor is energy. The more we ignore our body's cries for fresh air, oxygen, exercise, rest, recreation, water, fruit, vegetables, grains, seeds, nuts, legumes, and tubers, the less energy we're gonna have. The fourth enlightenment factor is joy. The more we try to practice active concentration as well as active contemplation, the more our blood mass is going to collect in at our amygdala, at the bottom of our limbic system. And consequently, the more we will experience anxiety and aggression. Do you want to experience more joy? Then instead of relying upon active concentration, rely upon passive mindfulness during each inhalation. Do you want to experience more joy? Instead of relying upon active contemplation, rely upon passive meditation during each relaxing exhalation. The fifth enlightenment factor is tranquility. Every time we exhale, thanks to our parasympathetic nervous system, we are wired to experience the physical relaxation and mental release of passive tranquility. That doesn't mean we won't notice things, but it means we will resist them less and less and less. As a geek, I'm reminded of Frank Herbert's tune. I shall paraphrase. I must not fear. Fear is the little death that brings obliteration. So I will face my fear. I will allow it to pass through me and over me and around me. I will turn to see my fear is gone, and only I remain, if there is such a thing. The sixth enlightenment factor is coalescence. Every time we inhale, our air coalesces in our lungs. We do not have to force this. This is an effortless function of our medulla oblongata. It is safe, my friends, to step out of our own way. Ouch. The seventh enlightenment factor is equanimity, or balance. Let us demystify it. Whatever duality we notice during our inhalation can be experienced as a non-duality during our exhalation. Balance means we have the same approach to everything, whether that which we notice is fragrant or foul. As we breathe in, we notice. As we breathe out, we relax. As we breathe in, we might experience the duality of noticing that some flavors are delicious and others are disgusting. There's nothing wrong with that. But as we relax into our exhalation, delicious and disgusting begin to fade into simply flavor. As we breathe in, we might notice the duality of pleasure and pain, and that's appropriate. That's a useful survival mechanism. But as we relax into our exhalation, the distinctions could begin to blur and simply fade into sensation. As we breathe in, we might notice the duality of harmony or discord. But as we relax into our exhalation, they could begin to blur into simply sound. As we inhale, we might notice the duality of beautiful and ugly. As we relax into our exhalation, they could begin to blur and melt into simply sights. Welcome to this morning's live stream. The moment you have a question about Buddhist meditation or philosophy, please type your question in great detail in the chat window. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever lower abdomen we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, is most assuredly non-graspable to the hand. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever navel we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever chest we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast open space. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever throat we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as the vast expanse. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever crown or scalp or top of our head we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy, please type your question in great detail in the chat window. But every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever wind or motion we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever earth or solidity or stability we might have experienced during our inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever moisture we might have perceived during our inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever warmth we might have experienced during our inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever spaciousness or openness we might have experienced during our inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel less graspable. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever body we might have noticed during our inhalation could feel less graspable. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever pleasure or pain or neutrality we might have noticed during our inhalation could feel less graspable. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever appraisal of volume or intensity of pleasure or pain we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever survival impulse we might experience during our inhalation, such as the impulse to fuck or fight or flee or faint or fawn. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever awareness we might have experienced during our inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. for our final meditation this morning. As we breathe in, let us relax. As we exhale, let us relax into the non-graspability of whatever it is that we perceive during our inhalation. Let us seal this morning's practice with a percussive recitation of the Heart of Wisdom Sutra. It is and then Guanji and Buza an archetype of love and letting go, while moving in the deep peace of the perfect understanding of awareness and release. Shed light on the five aggregates and found them equally empty. After this realization, she made peace with all pain. Listen, Shariputra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Form does not differ from emptiness, emptiness does not differ from form. The same is true with feeling, appraisal, impulse, and awareness. Listen, Shariputra, all phenomena are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither corrupted nor purified, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no appraisal, no impulse, and no awareness that once perceived cannot be released. No sensation, no flavor, no scent, no sound, no sight, no phenomena that once perceived cannot be released. No body, no tongue, no nose, no ears, no eyes, no mind that once perceived cannot be released. No feeling, no tasting, no smelling, no hearing, no seeing, no noticing that once perceived cannot be released. No interdependent origins and no extinction of them, from confusion to aging and death that once perceived cannot be released. No stress, no confusion, no liberation, no path, no understanding, no attainment that once perceived cannot be released. Because there is no attainment that once perceived cannot be released, the Bodhisattva archetypes of awareness and letting go supported. The perfection of understanding, find no obstacles for the minds that once perceived cannot be released. Having no obstacles that once perceived cannot be released, they transcend the tyranny of fear. liberating themselves forever from the tyranny of illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas of the past, present, and future, thanks to this perfect understanding of noticing and releasing, arrive at full right and universal enlightenment. Therefore, one should know that this perfect understanding of noticing and releasing is like a great mantra, is like an unequaled mantra. The destroyer of the tyranny of all suffering, the incorruptible truth. A mantra of Prajna Paramita's perfect wisdom of awareness and release could therefore be proclaimed. This is the mantra Gate Gate Para Samgati Bodhiswaha. Go completely and perfectly go to enlightenment, may it be so. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 1/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.